On the quiet night of March 24, 2016, in St. Louis, Missouri, tragedy struck inside a modest apartment on Semple Avenue. The victim was 30-year-old Jocelyn Peters, a beloved elementary school teacher who was 7 months pregnant and eagerly preparing for the arrival of her baby. Her life was stolen in the most brutal way. Shot in the head while she slept, with her baby shower invitations still lying unfinished on the table. At first glance, it seemed like a robbery gone wrong, but as detectives began piecing the evidence together, a far more sinister truth emerged. This was not the act of a stranger, but a carefully calculated betrayal carried out by someone she should have been able to trust with her life. The St. Louis Metropolitan Police Department quickly launched a full investigation, treating the case as a priority. What they uncovered was a twisted murder-for-hire plot that would shake the community to its core and leave Jocelyn's loved ones grappling with the unthinkable, that the very person who should have stood beside her was, instead, the one who orchestrated her death. This is her story. The night was heavy, the kind of stillness that makes you feel as if the air itself is holding its breath. On March 24, 2016, that silence was shattered forever. In a modest St. Louis apartment, a woman full of promise, 30-year-old Jocelyn Peters, lay lifeless in a pool of her own blood. She was 7 months pregnant, her baby shower invitations still resting unfinished on the table. This wasn't just a crime scene. It was the slaughter of hope itself. Jocelyn wasn't just a teacher. She was the kind of teacher students remembered for a lifetime. Her classroom was more than 4 walls. It was a sanctuary, a place where children who felt unseen finally found themselves reflected in her light. With her infectious smile and boundless energy, she made learning feel like magic. Parents adored her, colleagues admired her, and students loved her as fiercely as if she were family. And yet, even angels can be betrayed by those closest to them. Jocelyn had fallen in love with Cornelius Green, a polished middle school principal with charm that glistened like fool's gold. On the outside, he looked like the picture of respectability, a husband, a father, a leader. But behind the polished suits and professional accolades was a man who collected women like trophies, juggling lies as easily as others juggle keys. For Jocelyn, love had not come easily. She had endured miscarriages and abortions, some at Cornelius's insistence. Still, when she found herself pregnant again, she held on with both hands. At 30, she was ready to embrace motherhood, determined that this time would be different. She even chose a name for her unborn child, Michael. But while she dreamed of cradling her baby, the man who should have been her protector plotted her destruction. Cornelius, who should have been the anchor in her storm, saw her pregnancy not as a blessing, but as a threat to his double life. Instead of standing beside her, he tried first to erase the problem in secret, slipping crushed pills into oatmeal and yogurt like a coward too afraid to speak his cruelty aloud. When poisoning didn't work, he turned to something darker, something final. He hired a friend, paid just $2,500, barely the cost of a second-hand car, to have Jocelyn and her unborn child erased. Isn't it cruel irony that the life of a woman who gave everything to her students, her family, and her community was valued at less than the price of a sofa set? The betrayal was complete. On the night of March 24th, Jocelyn, exhausted but happy, drifted to sleep. Her baby kicked inside her, a silent reminder of the future waiting to be born. She didn't know that death was already on its way. Cornelius had left town to craft his alibi, his hands technically clean. But his accomplice, armed with a potato for a silencer, entered her apartment with keys Cornelius had given him. As Jocelyn lay in bed, dreaming of Micah's arrival, the hitman pulled the trigger. One muffled shot, and everything ended. When police arrived, the scene looked like a robbery gone wrong. But Jocelyn's family and friends knew better. She had no enemies, no debts. Nothing about her life invited such violence, except for the man she trusted most. Cornelius even had the audacity to call Jocelyn's mother before the murder, urging her to check on Jocelyn. A setup cloaked as concern. And later, after the crime, he dialed 911 with a trembling voice, pretending to be the grief-stricken partner who had stumbled upon horror. A performance so rehearsed it would be laughable if it weren't so grotesque. But lies have cracks, and when investigators pried into Cornelius's world, those cracks split open. They found messages, money transfers, calls to his so-called friend Philip Cutler. Piece by piece, the mask slipped. For 8 excruciating years, Jocelyn's family waited for justice. 8 years of walking past an empty classroom that once buzzed with her laughter. 8 years of remembering the sound of her last "I love you" to her mother. 8 years of knowing the father of her unborn child had orchestrated her death. When the verdict finally came in 2022, it was like a thunderclap. Cornelius Green was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms without parole. His accomplice Philip Cutler was also condemned to life. They will never see the light of day again, though even eternity in prison cannot bring Jocelyn back. Jocelyn's community refuses to let her name fade into the shadows of crime statistics. Men Elementary honored her with a yellow day, her favorite color, filling the halls with brightness to fight the darkness of her loss. A memorial garden now blooms in her honor, a living reminder that while one man tried to silence her, her light cannot be buried. Her mother still remembers the last time she saw her daughter. She said, "I love you," and I said, "I love you too." That was the last time. It's a haunting irony. Jocelyn gave her love freely, endlessly, fiercely, and it was that love for her unborn child that cost her life. But if love can be the reason a life is stolen, then love can also be the reason a life is remembered. Jocelyn Peters will not be forgotten.